3 spine-chilling true stories of terrifying encounters alone in the haunting woods revealed Emily had just moved to the quiet town of Maplewood, leaving behind the whispers of her past. Seeking a fresh start after the tragic loss of her husband, she decided to take her 2 young children on a camping trip into the nearby woods. The locals said it would help them heal and bond. As they set up their tent, the sun filtered through the leaves, casting a warm, golden glow over the picturesque surroundings. Everything felt perfect until it didn't. That when night fell, the woods morphed. The sounds of nature twisted into unsettling whispers, echoing through the trees. Emily's heart pounded as the darkness curled around them, sharp and biting. Every rustle sent shivers down her spine, each echo a reminder of the vulnerability she felt. Anxiety gripped her. She forced herself to smile, to assure her children everything was all right, even as she felt the weight of unseen eyes watching them. "I'm just being irrational," she reassured herself, shaking her head to dispel the dark thoughts that closed in like a thick fog. But as the hours stretched on, the night deepening like an ink stain, shapes flickered at the edge of her vision, dark and quick. A chill settled over the campsite, an insistent tug of fear gnawing at her gut. When the eerie silence was broken by a snapping twig, sweat dripped down her back, cold as ice. This was not the safe escape she'd envisioned. Morning light didn't warm her heart, instead, dread slithered through her as she explored the area. Emily discovered abandoned campsites, once filled with life, now shrouded in an eerie stillness. Remnants of old fires dotted the ground, their ashes cold and gray. But the worst shock came when she noticed the trees carved deep within their bark were the menacing warnings: "Turn back," and "You are not alone." "Urban legends," she murmured, trying to steel herself. "Just silly stories to scare kids." But the echoes of their sinister warnings pushed at her mind like relentless waves. "Okay, just focus," she told herself. "Let us head back." But the woods twisted, and each turn they took only led to more confusion, a labyrinth of shadow and despair closing in on them. With each moment, the sense of safety slipped away, replaced by an uncomfortable realization she was lost. Nightfall brought cold terror anew. As her children snuggled in their sleeping bags, innocent in their dreams, Emily felt the primal instinct of a mother gripping her heart. She blinked awake, a breath caught in her throat. The whispering wind braided with panic. Unable to shake the feeling of being watched, she was pulled toward the edge of the campsite, flashlight trembling in her hand. For a moment, she saw a shadow among the trees, tall and somehow contorted. Not an animal, not anything she could name. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Adrenaline surged. The shadow melted away, and she stumbled backward, breathless, fleeing or confronting. How do you battle something you can't see? Each snap of a twig sent her heart racing. Memories of friendly neighbors, their smiles now felt like masks. Could one of them be harboring dark secrets? The woods closed in, shadows shifting as the night whispered promises of dread. Drawing a shaky breath, Emily gathered her resolve. She wouldn't let this darkness swallow her. Yet, just as she turned to flee toward her children, something shifted in the air, a presence, thick and unnerving. What waited in the biting dark, and would she have the strength to protect her family? The dark encroached, swallowing every semblance of safety. Emily's breath quickened as she turned, heart pounding against her ribcage like a frantic prisoner desperate to escape. Her children slept, blissfully unaware of the shadow looming over them. Could she keep them safe? Would they even remember the love she poured into their lives if this was the end? The whispering resumed. It was a soft, almost soothing sound, yet it dripped with malice. "Come play with us," it seemed to say. A chill skated down her spine. Play? Play what? This wasn't child's play. This was a warning, a taunt woven in the very fabric of their surroundings. The flashlight flickered, casting long fingers of light that reached into the void between the trees. Each beam illuminated twisted branches, suggesting ghostly figures flitting just beyond reach. Emily gripped it tighter, pulse racing, fighting the urge to run. What if she wasn't alone? A tentative step backward sent leaves crackling beneath her feet. Instantly, the whispers shifted, transforming into giggles that echoed through the darkness. Were they playing tricks on her, or were there things in the shadows? Panic surged like ice coursing through her veins. Her children, a mother's instinct kicked in. She turned to check on them, and her heart nearly stopped. The sleeping bags were empty. The space where they had been was a yawning void, dark and menacing, leaving only fear pooling in her stomach. "Jack! Mia!" she hissed, voice trembling. No answer. Only silence responded, thick and suffocating. The suffocating pressure of the woods wrapped around her. Desperate, she swept the flashlight in every direction, hoping to catch a flicker of movement, anything. And then she saw its small footprints pressed into the soft earth, leading further into the trees. No. Emily chastised herself. This was not the time for rash decisions. Yet a frantic rush sent her plowing forward, the shadows stretching as she plunged into the thicker underbrush. Every breath was a labor, each step weighted with dread. She called out again, her voice rising with fear. "Jack! Mia!" But the woods seemed to mock her. The trees closed tighter as she pressed on, branches snarling at her shoulders, clawing at her clothing like skeletal fingers. Then, she heard it. A delicate laugh, like silver bells chiming in the dark. It came from somewhere distant, yet unmistakably alive, echoing through the twisting paths. A light in the blackness? "Mommy?" A voice broke through the dark, sweet and innocent. Emily's heart melted but froze again as realization hit. It wasn't a safe sound. The soft melody warped into the taunting whispers, mixing with her children's pleas. "Wait!" she shouted, dread frosting her words as she sprinted toward the echoes, vision blurring. It was a horrible game. The woods were playing with her, and her children were the bait. Determined, she followed the sound of the laughter, weaving through the trees until she burst into a clearing. What she saw froze her blood. There, twirling in the moonlight, were her children, no innocent joy in their movements. Instead, they danced in perfect sync, surrounded by shadowy figures. Their faces were hollow, eyes black and reflecting nothing, as if the darkness had stolen their very souls. "Join us, Mommy," they sang in eerie unison, their voices sweet yet chilling, a siren call dragging her deeper into the abyss. Emily stood paralyzed. Before she could scream, the shadows converged, enveloping her children. A terrible decision loomed in Emily's mind: follow them further or fight back the creeping despair that threatened to devour her whole. With a trembling heart, Emily stepped forward, ready to confront the dark, a fire ignited within her to save her children. But the instant she did, the shadows paused, watching, waiting. What had she awakened by entering the woods? And could she become the weapon against it? A single flicker of courage surged through her. But just as she began to approach, a loud snap echoed behind her. Instinctively, she turned, feeling the air shift. Something else had arrived, and it was hungry. Emily braced herself, torn between fear and determination, knowing that the woods had their own plans and time was running out. Would she succumb to the sinister game, or would she break the spell? As the ultimate confrontation loomed, the question lingered: how much darkness could one soul endure before it snapped? Before it was too late. Emily's heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the laughter that twisted into something sinister. Shadows, alive with a hunger she couldn't understand, danced around her children. Jack and Mia's vacant expression sent a scream bubbling in her chest, but she could not make a sound. The snap behind her echoed again, more pronounced, as if announcing the presence of something far worse than her own fear. A figure moved, a dark silhouette shifting against the backdrop of the trees. Emily's instincts screamed for her to run, but here in the heart of the woods, fear was a tether binding her. She couldn't move, her children were lost in this nightmare. "Mommy," their voices chimed, beckoning her with overlapping melodies, laced with an intimacy she had once cherished. Each word cut deeper than the last, twisting her insides. Those weren't just voices, they were mockeries. "Stop it!" she shouted, her voice shaky but imbued with a protective fierceness. "Let them go." Her words reverberated, swallowed by the night. The shadows paused. A flicker of recognition sparked in Jack's eyes, but it quickly faded into emptiness. The figures surrounding them seemed to pulse, hungry for the bond of love that tethered them to her. Whatever pulsed within the woods aimed to sever that link. The figure behind her stepped forward. It loomed, taller than any tree, its outline indistinct, blending into the inky black as though it were formed from the very darkness. Emily fought the urge to flee, to abandon everything for the safety of distance. "Join us," it whispered, voice draping over her like a chilling fog. "Stay away!" Emily yelled, defiance igniting her spirit. The trees shivered, their leaves rustling in response, as if displeased by her bravado. The shadowy figure twisted their elongated limbs, eyes glinting like sharp blades, deep voids that offered an escape into the unknown. In desperation, Emily lunged forward, trying to close the distance to Jack and Mia. But the moment her foot touched the path, the shadows around the children twisted in sync and their dance changed. They spun faster, repeating the haunting refrain, their limbs rapidly blurring. "Mommy, join us! Jack! Mia!" she screamed, arms stretching towards them, hoping to pull them back into reality. A gust of wind swept past, bringing with it a stench of decay and something sweetly foul. The hairs on the back of her neck stood. Emily felt the darkness tug at her, trying to pull her into its suffocating embrace. It offered promises of safety, of peace, but only at the expense of her children's souls. "No!" She fought against the tempest of whispers, summoning her strength. "You don't control us." The shadows recoiled, creating a rift among them, a split that momentarily exposed a glimpse of frightened faces. Jack's and Mia's appeared momentarily human, their eyes wide with confusion. "Mommy!" they cried in broken, pained tones. That slice of clarity broke Emily. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she lunged forward, closing the gap. She reached for their hands as they stretched back towards her, the abyss reaching for them, trying to snatch them away once more. The air crackled as if something ancient had been set in motion. The shadows lunged, and for an agonizing heartbeat, it was a clash, light against dark, love against despair. And then, just as she felt herself beginning to pull them back, a shriek shattered the night, a sound so piercing, so filled with anguish that it felt like an earthquake splitting through the earth. The dance stopped. Her children froze, eyes widening, as the dark figure twisted and writhed in fury. It was angry now, and the shadows writhed violently, threatening to swallow everything alive. "What have you done?" it hissed, and Emily felt a rush of cold slither through her. With renewed desperation, she pushed forward, a surge of love breaking through the chilling grip on her heart. But now the woods trembled, the ground beneath her feet shifting as she fought against the tide of darkness. And just as she was about to grasp her children's hands, the shadows surged forward, enveloping her in a frigid grip. The screams pulled tighter, a cacophony that rattled her to her core. It was impossible to tell if it was her voice or the woods crying out. Before everything blackened around her, a fleeting thought crossed her mind: could the darkness take every essence of her, every shred of hope she held dear? As Emily slipped into the void, the question lingered: how far would she have to sink to save her children, and what price would she pay to reclaim their love? The darkness enveloped Emily, cold and thick. She could feel it clawing at her insides, seeking to devour her thoughts and swallow her soul. Panic surged within her, a tidal wave crashing against the fragile barriers of hope she had built. She fought to stay conscious, to not let the shadows carry her away into oblivion. Images flashed through her mind: their laughter at the park, the warmth of Mia's hand in hers, Jack's bright, mischievous smile. For a moment, the shadows trembled. She sensed a flicker of light, a tether back to her children, urging her not to surrender. Suddenly, she was thrust back out of the void, gasping for air, her heart racing. But everything felt wrong. The woods were turned upside down. Where were the trees? Instead, an unfathomable expanse of darkness loomed, a twisted nightmare stretching for eternity. "Mommy?" The whisper spiraled like smoke in the stillness, curling around her, a haunting echo. "Mommy!" It was Jack. She was certain of it. But before she could respond, the laughter returned. But this time, it wasn't the innocence of her children, it was tainted, filled with malice, a chorus of vile joy that taunted her. Emily gritted her teeth, spinning to find her kids, lungs aching for their embrace. Ahead, a flicker of movement danced along the edges of the void. Shadows leered at her, shifting and swirling, merging into grotesque forms that made her skin crawl. "Jack! Mia!" She shouted, each syllable a desperate cry cutting through the encroaching dread. The laughter faded slightly, and in an almost mocking tone, an echo replied, "Join us." "No." The word escaped her throat like a wild animal. She moved closer to the sound, toward the grim silhouette sliding in and out of the murky night. An unnatural wind whipped around her, carrying scents of damp earth and something sickeningly sweet, drawing her deeper into the maw of shadows. What if they were trapped? What if the evil surrounding her had completely twisted their spirits? The thought made her stomach turn. She couldn't let despair consume her, she had to press on. "Stay close, kids," she pleaded, channeling every ounce of determination into her words. "I'm right here. I won't leave you." Nothing but silence responded, a heavy weight that settled in her chest. It felt like hours, stretching into infinity, until she sensed movement again. Figures flickered in and out, long limbs reaching out, tempting her to come closer. "Mommy!" The voices of Jack and Mia echoed again, but this time they were accompanied by something darker. An undercurrent of desperation washed over them, suffused with fear. "Help us hold on. I'm coming." Emily's feet felt like lead, each step heavy and slow as though the ground itself wanted to swallow her whole. But she pushed through, her resolve growing stronger with every labored breath. Suddenly, the shadows burst apart with an eerie screech, and she stumbled backward, her heart thudding painfully in her chest. A figure loomed before her, massive and writhing, eyes like burning coals fixed on her, the dark figure that had torn her from her children. "You think you can save them?" It laughed, the sound grinding against her mind. "They belong to us now." "No!" Emily yelled, defiance bubbling in her throat, but inside, fears curled like claws around her heart. What if it was true? Before she could register the movement, the ghastly figure lunged, a shadowy clamor swirling in tandem. Emily's instincts kicked in, and she dodged, the stench of its breath wrapping around her like barbed wire. She had to get to her kids. Just as she started to dash again, the shadows froze. Then, in a chilling calm, the figure spoke, "We can help you find them. But a price must be paid." Fear rippled through Emily. A deal with the darkness? What did that entail? With dread pooling inside her, she asked, "What kind of price?" The darkness whispered her name as if savoring it. And just like that, the shadows started to close in again. What would she be forced to sacrifice to save her children? The true cost of love had never felt this sinister. The shadows pressed closer, pulsating with an energy that felt alive, smothering the remnants of hope within Emily. She fought the instinct to scream, forcing herself to breathe, to think. A price, the words echoed in her mind, twisting around her like a serpent. What would they demand from her? Her sanity? Her flesh? "First, tell me what you want," she shouted, unsure whether the darkness would respond. Desperation clawed at her throat, choking every word. The figure loomed larger, its laughter resonating like a funeral dirge. "We want what you hold most dear. The ones you love or the last pieces of your soul? Which will you choose? No, no way, but as she protested, dread seeped into her bones. What if it wasn't a choice at all? What if the darkness already knew her answer? The shadows flickered with malicious delight, bending and twisting. A twinge of regret coursed through her. She couldn't abandon Jack and Mia, but what could she possibly give away? Then, a chilling memory washed over her, the small necklace she always wore, a leftover from her grandmother. It was more than just a piece of jewelry, it was a connection to her past, to love and safety. I can't give you that. She cried. Anything but that. Very well. The dark figure's voice was smooth, a silk that concealed the rock beneath. But know this: the bond you share with your children will be tested. Only one of you can escape this place unharmed. No. Panic erupted, hot and brutal. I'm not choosing between them. I want tea. Hot tears stung her eyes, the weight of the world feeling like a knife driven into her heart. The shadows groaned, the laughter fading. Then prepare yourself, Emily. You seek to defy us in a game you do not understand. The shadows shifted, merging into a long corridor of darkness stretching far beyond her sight. What do you mean a game? Enter the shadows, and you shall find out. Only the deserving can reclaim what has been lost. With that, the figure receded, its laughter reverberating as the darkness opened into an endless black tunnel, an invitation wrapped in dread. Emily hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. Could she plunge into that abyss? Her instincts screamed for her to run, to flee from this sinister playground, but a part of her whispered of courage, of a fight worth facing. What if Jack and Mia truly needed her? Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. The chill enveloped her instantly, dragging at her limbs like chains. The darkness felt tangible, a thick weight against her skin. Shadows crawled along the walls, morphing into fragmented faces that mimicked her anguish, twisted and grotesque. A flicker of light erupted in the distance. It pulsed like a heartbeat, beckoning. Mommy! The call shattered her resolve, igniting a fierce determination. Hold on, kids. I'm coming. She shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. She couldn't think about the odds, every second mattered. As she sprinted toward the light, shadows leaped around her, trying to pull her back, their touch cold and electric. The whispers intensified, a chorus of chaos begging her to succumb, yet Emily resisted, driving forward, fueled by unyielding hope. Finally, she reached the light. It was blinding, almost unbearably hot. But as she squinted into the brilliance, a vision materialized: Jack and Mia, trapped in a glass-like box, shadows clawing at their sides. Their eyes were wide with terror, pleading silently for her help. Mommy! Please! Their voices melded seamlessly with the laughter around her, and panic surged. Without thinking, Emily hurled herself toward the light, reaching for her kids, but a force slammed into her back, wrenching her down. She crashed to the ground. Not a chance, a voice hissed behind her. The shadows shifted, coiling around her legs, grappling with her body as she fought against their hold. She had to get to them. Let me go. I will save them. She screamed, thrashing, but the shadows grew tighter, colder. Your sacrifice has only just begun. Terror suffocated her. Was the price she feared about to exact itself? Would it claim her spirit forever, or was there still hope to save them all? Panic seized Emily as she realized the darkness was not done with her yet. The shadows would make sure she understood, someone would pay the ultimate price. And she would be forced to witness the torment of her children's fate. What further horrors awaited her in this grotesque game? How long could she endure before the darkness claimed them all? Emily's breath came in frantic gasps, tears spilling down her cheeks as the shadows gripped her tighter, their cold, clammy presence crawling up her arms. Every instinct urged her to fight, but the darkness pressed deeper, crushing her will. She twisted and turned, desperate to break free, but it felt like being trapped in a nightmare with no way out. Let them go. She pleaded, voice hoarse and raw, feeling the strength of her resolve waver. The laughter echoed in reply, chilling and merciless. It knifed through her heart, a reminder of the fate that awaited her children if she couldn't find a way to save them. Mommy! Jack's voice pierced the veil of despair, sharp and bright against the shadows. Help us! Please! Every call stabbed at her soul, but the glass-like prison held firm, flickering and shimmering as if both repelling and inviting her touch. Anguish twisted in her gut. A wildfire of the impossible burned through her. What if there was a way to break the glass? What if she could pull them free? No. The shadows tightened their grip, making her knees buckle. You can't take them. You want me? Fine. Just let them go. For a brief moment, the shadows froze, and Emily saw a flicker of hesitation in their embrace. You think this is a bargain, Emily? The voice slithered closer, spitting venom with each word. This is a game you cannot win. Every sacrifice has its consequence. Then tell me. What do I have to do? The desperation clawed at her throat, almost choking her. The figure in the shadows re-emerged, its presence suffocating, as if the very air had turned against her. You will play our game, and only then will we consider your plea. In an instant, the shadows released her, sending her sprawling onto the cold, hard floor of the corridor. The abrupt freedom was disorienting, and she struggled to regain her bearings. Mommy! Jack cried again, but it was muffled, as if traveling through miles of thick fog. The glass prison shimmered ominously, darkening around the edges, casting long shadows that danced whimsically with cruel laughter. As Emily fought to stand, the weight of fear pressed against her lungs. She had just been given a terrifying ultimatum, and the implications soaked into her very being. The dark corridor was bereft of comfort, only the echoing laughter accompanied her. Amalgamations of dread chimed in her ears, whispers promising torment and despair. Emily stumbled forward, quickly wiping her tears. What's the game? She shouted into the void, challenging the darkness. I'll play. Just tell me what to do. The walls trembled as the shadows swirled and coiled like vipers, forming shapes that blended in and out of view. You will traverse through your darkest memories, reliving every moment of weakness, every regret. Only if you confront the truth can you hope to save them. Emily shuddered, memories flooding back, the times she lost her temper, missed opportunities, moments of neglect. Each one hurt like a stab to her heart. No, not my memories, she whispered, realizing the true horror of the game. I want to let you in. The passage is set. You can choose to move backward or remain trapped forever, bound to witness their demise. This is your only choice. Her heart raced. The shadows reached again, tendrils curling, daring her to make a move, summoning every ounce of courage. Emily stepped into the very shadows that haunted her, her body trembling, her mind racing. There was no other choice. If she couldn't save Jack and Mia, she was lost. Let us see how far you'll go to save them. The shadows enveloped her, and a bone-chilling cold enveloped her senses. What awaited her in the depths of her past? Would confronting the ghosts of her memories lead to salvation, or was it a path to their doom? Mommy! The cries echoed one last time as darkness swallowed her whole. Emily plunged into the darkness, the shadows coiling around her like suffocating vines. Jeering whispers echoed, growing louder, filling her head with chilling memories, each one more haunting than the last. The air turned thick and heavy, full of her past mistakes, as if it were trying to drown her in regret. Suddenly, the darkness split, revealing a dimly lit room. There, she found herself staring at the battered old dining room table of her childhood home. The wallpaper peeled like dying skin, and the air was pungent with mold and despair. She recognized it instantly. This was the scene of the first nightmare, the argument that torn her family apart. Silence fell, thick and stifling. The soft creak of the floorboards could almost be heard over the violent thudding of her heart. Emily gasped as her younger self stood at the table, her face flushed and her fists clenched in frustration. No! She cried, don't! Don't you dare raise your voice at me. The shadowy figures of her parents materialized, both twisting and wailing like tortured souls. The guilt washed over her in waves. Look at you. She heard her father's voice shriek, a cocktail of fury and regret. Always running away. Always hiding from the truth. No. I didn't mean. Emily stumbled backward, trying to escape the ghostly onslaught, but the darkness closed in tighter, forcing her closer to the memory. Every time you should have fought but chose to remain silent, every moment you gave up, they haunt you, Emily, echoed the shadows, their voices merging into a cacophony of despair. She squeezed her eyes shut, desperately seeking to block out the past's suffocating grip. It's just a memory. She yelled, but the walls reverberated with doubt. Is it? A voice rumbled from the abyss. We're only as strong as our choices, Emily. Your weakness has consequences that your children now suffer. Will you change it? The room began to dissolve, walls melting like candle wax, and she felt herself being pulled away from the scene. Panic surged through her, and she gasped as visions flickered, each one a moment of failure, each wounding deeper than the last. She saw her little girl, Mia, yearning for attention, scared of the monsters under her bed that she neglected to acknowledge. Jack, lost in his own world, searching for her when she was supposed to be his safe haven. Emily's heart shattered anew with each flash, the realization churning in her gut. Save them, Emily, the shadows taunted. Face your fears or lose them forever. With a surge of defiance, Emily clenched her fists. This was a nightmare fueled by her own regrets, but it didn't define her. She took a trembling step forward into the swirling darkness. I will not be a coward. She screamed, forcing herself to confront each memory. I'll own my past and fight for my kids. The laughter from the darkness grew louder, mocking her resolve, vibrating through her bones. Very well. But know this, bravery comes with a price, my dear. With a sharp intake of breath, the shadows conspired, stirring violently around her. They began to swirl into a new memory, climbing up the walls and wrapping her in uncertainty. As the new scene emerged, a sense of dread washed over her. This time, she stood in a familiar park, the place where she let Jack run off alone, where neglect had nearly cost her everything. Suddenly, the dim glow of the park lanterns flickered ominously, shadows stretching longer than they should. Why did you let him go? The echoes sneered. He is still there, you know. Alone. Her heart dropped. Jack's laughter faded from her memory, swallowed instead by unsettling silence. No. Jack, I'm coming. Her voice quaked as darkness loomed, waiting for her next move. Would she have the strength to confront her failures here? Would she reclaim her son or lose him forever in the shadows? The shadows leaned closer, anticipating her answer. The darkness trembled with unshakable anticipation. Emily's breath came in quick, sharp bursts as she gripped the edges of the park bench, desperately trying to anchor herself in a reality that felt like slipping sand. The park was still, too still, like a predator waiting to pounce. The rustle of leaves echoed in her ears, mocking her as she tried to piece together where Jack could be, lost in this nightmare of her own making. Jack! She shouted, her voice shattering the silence, but the sound only echoed back, taunting her with its emptiness. Panic gnawed at her stomach, twisting and turning like a beast waiting to break free. Remember, he's always been here, hissed the darkness, weaving through her anxiety. You chose to ignore him then, why would it be different now? The reminder stabbed at her heart, sharp and biting. She had failed him when he needed her the most. Jack! She cried again, desperation flooding her voice. Please, where are you? As if in response, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A shadow darted among the trees, just beyond the glow of the lanterns. Is that you? She dared to hope, and stepped forward, heart racing. Every nerve-ending screamed to retreat, every instinct told her to run. But she couldn't abandon him again. She couldn't fail. With shaky legs, she approached the shifting silhouette, the darkness coiling tighter around the park, strangling the light. As she neared, the shadow morphed, revealing a child-sized figure. "Jack!" She gasped, relief pouring over her like warm water. But the comforting hug of safety was fleeting. The figure turned, and Emily froze, blood running cold. It wasn't Jack, it was another child, eerily familiar but twisted. Its face was smudged, a mask of dirt and fear. Eyes large and unblinking, reflecting the dim light as if they were hollow voids. "Help him," the shadow child whispered, its voice soft yet drenched in sorrow. "He is still waiting, lost." "No. I must find my son," Emily shouted, but the shadows wrapped fully around her. The park entrance flickered further away, every step seeming to pull her deeper into a chasm. "Lose yourself, and lose them," the whispers urged, circling around her like a storm. Emily stumbled back, her heart thudding, floundering between the reality that this was her son, and the gut-wrenching fear that perhaps she was losing him, losing herself all over again. "Jack!" she screamed, voice hoarse as panic clawed at her throat. "I'll find you." Suddenly, the child's silhouette shifted, morphing back into the darkness, dissolving into the trees. It vanished, leaving her raw vulnerability laid bare. The stifling silence returned, wrapping around her like a noose. She felt the weight of guilt, the shadows tightening their grip, as if mourning what they left behind. "Time is short, brave one," another voice emerged, deep and resonant, churning with threat. "The longer you linger in this darkness, the more you risk losing him forever." The shadows pulsed, a wave of energy shifting the air, and she realized the park was no longer the familiar place of her memories. It had become a labyrinth, a haze of unreality with paths leading to nowhere. Her heart raced. "Jack!" But the only response was the creeping dread that wrapped around her, an echo of her unresolved choices. Would she turn back? Each heartbeat resonated with urgency. The cold sweat trickled down her neck as she stood in the abyss of uncertainty. "Will you choose to fight?" The shadows hissed, their laughter bone-chilling. "Or succumb to despair?" Emily's resolve teetered on the edge. Her children needed her to be their beacon through the storm, yet the fear of the unknown loomed larger. Suddenly, the darkness throbbed with life and anticipation, and all she could ask herself was what would she sacrifice to confront the truth. The shadows watched, bated breath in their whispers. Emily squared her shoulders, given no choice but to answer the darkness that dared to consume her. Emily's heart raced as she clutched her arms around herself, fighting the overwhelming urge to flee. The whispers were everywhere now, a cacophony of voices echoing through the trees, each one a reminder of her failures, her regrets. They pressed against her mind, trying to draw her into despair. "Find Jack," she muttered through clenched teeth, forcing herself to move, step after shaky step. "I have to find Jack." The dark paths twisted and turned, shifting as she walked. Each shadow flickered with malicious intent, and Emily could feel their weight pressing down on her. The lanterns that once illuminated her way flickered with every breath she took, leaving her with just brief glimpses of the ground beneath her feet. "Help him," the shadow child's voice skittered through her thoughts, wrapping around her like a vine, choking her resolve. Emily pictured Jack, his bright smile and laughter, the little boy who'd depend on her, who'd trust her with everything. What had she done to him? What kind of mother would abandon him? The ground beneath her felt unstable, as if the very earth were shifting with her fear. Every time she thought she could see the layout of the park, the trees loomed bigger, branches stretching like skeletal arms, pulling her toward the heart of the darkness. "Jack!" The name burst from her lips again, desperation unraveling the threads of her mind. Silence followed like a hungry beast, swallowing her cries. But before she could spiral deeper into despair, a soft, sobbing sound reached her ears, slicing through her panic like a knife. "Jack!" She called out, hope clawing its way into her chest. Help! The voice was faint but there laced with a familiar timbre that could only belong to her son. Without thought and driven only by instinct, Emily stumbled forward, through a low wall of thorns that seemed to whip against her as she passed. She gasped as pain lanced through her skin, red lines appearing on her arms. But she couldn't stop. Jack needed her, the sobbing grew stronger, more coherent. "Mommy. I'm here." Her heart soared as relief threatened to pull her under. "I'm coming, Jack. Hold on." But with every step closer, the shadows thickened and twisted around her ankles, snagging her like fishing lines. "Leave her, leave him," they hissed. The darkness pulled at her legs, threatening to drag her back into the void. Panic surged, and Emily yanked her foot free, her breath quickening. "Not again." She yelled defiantly, summoning strength from somewhere deep inside. The shadows writhed, recoiling at her forceful resolve. She could see flickers of light now through the trees, small beams that shot through, guiding her. There. A glimmer of hope ahead, a clearing where the lanterns shone brighter. "Jack!" she shouted, surging forward, breaking through the final barriers of shadow. As she crossed into the clearing, a familiar silhouette emerged, small and frail, trembling but alive. "Mommy!" Jack cried out, arms reaching towards her, but as Emily rushed forward, the warmth of her heart fell away when she realized he was shrouded in darkness, the shadows swirling around him. The moment she reached him, a deep, echoing laughter erupted from the trees. "What happens next?" Emily's voice trembled. She ignored the icy grip closing around her heart as she desperately wrapped her arms around Jack. "Oh, you found him," the shadows sneered, their claws tightening in the space between them, but it was never meant to be this way. Could she protect Jack, or was the truth already pulling them both into an abyss? Just as she felt the shadows begin to consume their moment, her eyes widened. An even darker figure loomed just behind Jack, waiting, watching. And Emily knew the real terror was just beginning. Emily's heart thundered like a drum in her ears, the sound of panic drowning out everything else. She could feel Jack's small frame trembling in her arms, and yet the darkness closed in, wrapping around them like a constrictor. The shadows roiled, eager to pounce and shatter the fragile bond built on love and desperation. "No!" she gasped, fighting the urge to retreat. "I want to let you take him." Determined, Emily stepped between Jack and the waiting void. The swirling shadows writhed as she stood firm, her heart pulsating with the will to fight. "You can't have him. I will do whatever it takes," she declared, drawing strength from every loving memory they had ever shared. The laughter rippled through the air, mocking her defiance. "What will you sacrifice, mother?" they taunted, their voices blending into a chilling symphony. "Anything. Everything. Just let him go." Each word slipped from her lips, a desperate plea wrapped in raw emotion. Jack's eyes, bright and frightened, regarded her with both awe and fear. "Mommy, I don't want to leave you," he whimpered, the sound tightening a knot in her chest. In that moment, Emily knew she could not falter, not now. The shadows might say otherwise, but she wouldn't buckle under their weight. "Stay close to me, Jack," she whispered, squeezing him tight as if their embrace could create a shield against the encroaching darkness. Suddenly, the shadows seemed to hesitate, their ferocity wavering. "You believe love can protect you?" they hissed, tauntingly. "Love is weakness. It makes you a target." But Emily's resolve burned brighter. "No. Love is our strength," she shouted defiantly. "It's what made me come this far." The shadows screeched, momentarily retreating at her conviction. She seized the opportunity, grabbing Jack's hand and racing forward, the lanterns flickering with renewed brightness in response to her courage. "Keep running, Jack," she urged, weaving through the labyrinth, dismissing the whispers that crawled around her. The clearing ahead seemed to shimmer as if beckoning them nearer, the clutches of despair loosening, the fight growing dimmer, but the darkness was relentless, clawing, clinging. Just as they reached the edge of the light, the towering shadow materialized before them, the same writhing figure from before, malicious and furious. "You think you can escape?" it rumbled, deep and echoing, a condemnation that rattled the very bones of the ground. You cannot bargain with darkness. Emily stood her ground, teeth gritted, anchored to her purpose. I'll fight, and I'll win. I won't let this darkness take my children. For a moment, the shadow faltered, confused by her unwavering spirit. Then prepare for the true cost, it snarled. Before she could react, the darkness erupted, a wave crashing over them. Emily felt her body being hoisted into the air, the world swirling around her. She screamed, feeling everything she loved being ripped from her grasp. But not Jack. She would never let go of Jack. Fight it, Mommy! Jack shouted, his voice spearing through the chaos. And in that moment, Emily drew on the very essence of her being, the memories of each laugh, each tear, each hug, the light cutting fiercely into the dark. I choose love. She screamed. The shadows shrieked, splintering under the intensity of her words. They began to dissolve, retreating like mist in the morning sun. Emily felt the weight lift, both physically and emotionally, as the all-consuming darkness splintered away. Mommy! Jack cried with a radiant smile, bounding into her arms. The trees around them shimmered, no longer menacing, but luminous and vibrant with life. The darkness surged one last time, then fell back, utterly vanquished. The world brightened, painting the woods in shades of gold. Emily squeezed Jack tightly, relief flooding through her. Mia! Where was Mia? Mommy? A soft voice floated through the clearing like a song, the familiar intonation of her little girl, emerging from the tangled depths. Mia! The dread that had been lodged in Emily's throat melted into pure joy as she rushed to her. The moment she was within reach, Emily enfolded her children in a protective embrace, fear shattering like glass. I thought I lost you. She breathed, holding them tightly, feeling the warmth radiate through her, their laughter mingling, rising like music against the trees. The whispers had died down to a memory, fading into the whispers of night. The woods transformed, a sanctuary once more, inviting them back to the light. They were safe and free, the bond of love woven ever more resilient. As they emerged from the woods, casting one last glance back, Emily felt the shadows retreat, powerless against the strength of her love. She had conquered the darkness today, with Jack and Mia by her side, and though the challenges ahead were uncertain, one thing was clear: they would face them together, hand in hand. Don't you want to hear more thrilling stories just like Emily's? This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales that will chill you to the bone. Smash the like button now. Let's feed the algorithm and keep the darkness at bay. Your support matters, and hey, we want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Emily's adventure. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how love can conquer even the darkest woods. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.